And we are live.
We're live. We have 4 people live out of 13 registered total.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. I'm wearing my sunglasses from my holiday. We're obviously leading into more fun in relationships. So Gabriella, as you can see, has got a lovely fun background behind her. So to compete with her, I had to grab my sunglasses. That I don't know what they're supposed to be. I don't know if they're the colors of the Jamaican flag. I don't know.
That's right. Yeah, they are.
I'm not going to do an accent.
Okay, well, Jamaica man. What is it? Yaman. Yaman.
No comment. No comment.
Are you going to keep them the whole time, or are you going to?
Well, it depends. Is that going to be a bad habit?
Yes.
That's
So
a bad.
get rid of it so it doesn't bother me.
You've got to see past you. You've got to see past the bad habits.
Alrighty.
Right. Okay. We've got Thomas, Ravi, Matt, another Ravi, Igor, and Henk on the line. Hello, everyone. Feel free to drop a little note in the chat box. I'm going to take these off.
Thank God.
Jealous, Gabriella. Just jealous.
Sure. So the title, what's our wonderful title today, Ankush? Well, first, hello. It's nice to see you because we haven't seen each other in like a week and a half.
Yeah.
So
it's longer than that. It seems like it's been a while, but it's been about 10 days.
10 days, right. And I look forward to seeing you. Actually, I'm getting very excited to be with you in person. So that's good.
Yeah, it's like we've spent so much time on Skype and Zoom and Google Hangouts, and yet we've not met each other in real life. So
not yet, yeah.
So looking forward to seeing you in Birmingham.
Birmingham, November 6th, right?
Yeah, November the 6th. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. We've got about 30 people in the room.
Great.
So it's gonna be cool. Yeah, hopefully we're gonna get lots of questions from people. We've got my family there.
Oh, whoa.
So hopefully they won't embarrass me too much, but we'll try and condition them beforehand. So welcome everyone. If you've just joined, I can see some more people have joined. We're going to give everyone another couple of minutes to log on and get set up before we start talking. We're covering seeing past your partner's bad habits today, and we've been having a bit of a chat before this webinar to really have a discussion about what that means for us, and we're going to cover some cool things about approaching habits before they become a problem, dealing with them with grace and ease. What's the cause of this? And then Gabriella's got some cool things to talk about as well, and we'll talk about this more when we start. But we're going to be talking about the day-to-day, daily habits that people demonstrate.
Right. That we all have too, right? Like all of us have some funky, quirky little behaviors.
Yeah.
That we just sort of do as our daily routine that I'm sure can annoy other people. So we'll be talking about that too.
Brilliant. Okay, so I think it's probably a good time to get started.
Okay.
And if anyone else joins us, then they join us alongside. So I'm Ankush. So I think everyone on the call knows me, but this is the third in the series of webinars that Gabriella and I are doing, leading up to the live event we're doing in November in Birmingham. And Gabriella was someone that I interviewed for my podcast, the Relationship Series. Mm-hmm. And we thought it'd be great to do a spin-off number of webinars and a live event to talk about what relationships mean to us, and specifically to talk about bringing joy, lightness, and fun into our relationships.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And today we're talking about habits, and I'm looking forward to that because I do have a bad habit, and I do have the bad habit of being probably extra clean. So I have been known actually to put people's glasses, like water glass or cup away before they're done, to clean it, and so it's just been really interesting to come into a relationship and see my own adopted behaviors that started, I think, with goodwill. They started innocently, these behaviors, and somehow I've gotten really attached to them, and I just sort of do them as a second nature. So I love talking about habits that way. And again, before we began, you and I were talking about the fact that we understand that sometimes there are habits that people have that are dangerous or that need to be addressed, that really are outside leaving your shoes, in the middle of the room, or, whatever. So we're not addressing that. Our talk today is not really addressing that kind of a heavy situation where, something needs to be done. It's more like your daily mundane behaviors that drive your partner crazy, or, that kind of a theme. So, it's interesting when we think of habits as problems versus when we think of habits as a neutral behavior, and really that we all have some quirky behaviors that in relationships, they tend to kind of clash with our partner.
So by that, you're kind of saying that what I hear you saying is that someone else might see that as a bad habit, and someone else might see that as a great thing. So you're talking about cleanliness. I can imagine some people going, yeah, that's great. I would love to be living with someone who's that clean. My husband or my wife's a right slob. And so that, there's no, who judges? Who says it's a good habit or a bad habit? Do we go to the ministry of habit judges, right, to go, well, my partner does this. Does that fall into the good habit or the bad habit? We kind of create that ourselves.
Right. So that was, I think, our first point, right? We would like to kind of really talk about straight on about what is a habit, what is a bad habit. And I think the unveiling the bad habit, the definition of that is just that it's somebody's behavior, and it can be perfectly acceptable in a household and completely not acceptable in another household, right? It can be perfectly acceptable in my culture and completely not acceptable in yours, or perfectly acceptable, even valued in my life and completely not value in somebody else's life, right? But it's just really helpful to see if you're in a relationship and if you're struggling with somebody's habits, or if somebody's struggling with yours, to see them as a neutral behavior, right? That all behavior, all habits really are just a neutral action on somebody's part.
So is that really true? What do you mean by that? Because I'm guessing there's some people here who are going, really, Gabriela? Really, Ankush? Well, you have no idea what my wife or girlfriend or husband or partner does.
Well, I'm going to talk about my mother-in-law, okay? My mother-in-law, which I love very much. Let me start with that. She is an elderly lady, and she's 87. And she has this, and I love this woman, okay? I love this woman. Now, mind you, I have this habit. I value a behavior of being clean. And my lovely mother-in-law, because she has problems with her teeth, she tends to chew in the front part of her mouth, whether it's cookies or any other bread, and she loves bread. So one of the things that I noticed a while back is that every time that she ate at our house, there would be a little circle of crumbs around the area where she was, right? Like in the floor, and the table, everywhere. Now, it was really fascinating because I was looking at it, and at one point I noticed that my own value on cleanliness sort of sip through in my brain, right? It just kind of like a little fish just kind of came through. And the moment that I started evaluating that behavior, guess what happened? I started feeling annoyance, right? And then all of a sudden I sort of looked around, wow, look at how she eats. Before that, it was just sort of mean appreciation of like, oh my God, she eats like a little bird, right? Like there was a neutrality, like, wow, look at this, right? So, you know, I mean, with my husband, he does things that annoy me. Okay, so we understand that we're going to get annoyed from time to time, but it is something to see, Ankush, that really when the rubber meets the road, or when we are in a lovely feeling with our partners or our in-laws or etc., that those behaviors don't seem to be a big deal.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I'm talking about, you know.
Yeah, no, and what I really like, Gabriella, is that it's a really, like, this is our first point, but it's a really, really big point for me, because if we start with the place that there are bad habits and there are good habits, and our partners have bad habits which are going to annoy us, and this is about just dealing with them or seeing past them, as the title suggests, it's a very, very different thing compared to realizing what our partners do is just behavior. Like I love the way you said it. It's neutral behavior. It is just behavior, and anything that anyone does, you know, people are going to have different reactions to it. Some people are going to be really annoyed by it, and some people are going to really enjoy it, whatever it is. Some people are going to really like that. And so for me, that as a starting position, that as a starting place, is really, really, really different. And it's the thing that makes a big difference for me in all of my relationships. That the starting position is behavior is neutral. The behavior of whoever it is that I'm dealing with is neutral. And it's my thinking about what their behavior is which causes me to get annoyed about it, or feel happy about it, to feel loving or upset. And so from that position, it really isn't about the other person. It's really about me and how I react to the other person.
Mm-hmm. And I think I cannot stress enough how powerful it is to see that. To see that when you understand that behavior is neutral, that by itself it has no power in relationship to your partner, it neutralizes the situation immediately. You know, like as you were talking about it, I almost felt like a calmness in my body, right? Like, oh, okay. When you start looking at a certain behavior and innocently, right, evaluating it a lot, wishing it was different. Not that it shouldn't be different, but you know, like all these attachments that we have and all the evaluation that we do on behavior, if that's your beginning point to have a conversation, you're sort of charged already with lots of energy that your partner tends to pick up on, right? Because we're not dumb, we're intelligent people. So when your partner is coming at you and they're already annoyed, or they're coming at you, what happens to the relationship? That's very different than when your partner comes to you with kindness and love. I mean, the same conversation can happen, the same topic can be addressed, but as you're saying, the game is just sort of completely different. So although there might be a habit that maybe, you know, needs to be addressed, etc., I think one of the most important things is to realize that if you are going to talk to your partner about it, it is most helpful, and it is most, I think our partners are able to listen to us better when we come with that sense of neutrality, right? Versus with all that charge and fury.
Yeah. And our first point on this webinar in the copy that went out was you know, dealing with habits, you know, before they become a problem. And I think exactly what we're talking about is that same thing, because if we can see them as neutral, even if we can't see them in the moment as neutral, even if we are upset, but having an awareness that upsetness is us, that's coming from us, we're creating that, as opposed to it's something that's happening to us. This action is happening to us. That kind of creates, I think, a bit of space between us and our upset, and therefore it gives us, like you say, that ability to approach our partner in a different way. I feel that it's not this huge issue and this big problem that we bring all of this thinking to it, and we need to fix it, and they need to change, and how God is so insensitive, that, you know, and it goes on and on and on. But just to give us that space to deal with the other person, and realizing that, you know, we're involved in that equation. You know, the equation of you getting upset by a bad habit, that doesn't exclude you. That's not all to do with your partner, and you're just a receiver, if you like, of that bad habit. You are involved in that process.
Yeah, because really the bottom line is that, you know, like in the example of the crumbs or any other example, I mean, you know, this of course happens to me. It's something to see that the behavior is the behavior, but the feeling of discomfort and annoyance comes from me. There's something to see about that. That's really powerful, because it releases you from a perspective that is just kind of takes you downhill, and it really engages a way of interacting with another human being, where resolution really eventually is what we want. You know, and I kind of have an example of this that it just really touches my heart a lot. Another habit that I have is that time is not, I'm not timely. I'm not a timely person. You know, I'm always kind of running a little late. And my husband had a job where for him being on time is being 20 minutes early. For me, being on time is being 15, 20 minutes late, right? So there's 45 minutes there. When we started a relationship, we really sort of came and clashed on that. Because when he said, okay, we're going to be leaving around 12, for example, to me that meant 12:15, and for him it meant 20 to 12, right? So at 10 to 12, he was already like, hey, you know, we're late. And I'm like, what do you mean? We still have like 25 minutes, you know, we're perfectly okay. So, you know, we have had our journey with that whole entire thing. What happens today really is that I notice he has developed these ways of helping me that I appreciate a lot. So if we're going to a party, if we're going somewhere, an hour and a half before we have to go, he'll say, honey, it's 11:30, we have to leave at 1, you know, just wanted to let you know. At 1, hey, you know, maybe you want to go take a shower, right? And even with all those little hints, sometimes I'm running late. Well, what he's done really is he's developed a whole entire way to just enjoy the time that he's waiting for me. When I notice that, I notice that I have a desire to meet him more in the middle. Do you know? It's like, wow, he's so helpful to me. He is so kind to me. He's trying to really be so graceful with me, that all of that touches me and wants to be more and more on time. You know, what I noticed before is when he was like, God, you're late, God, you're late, God, you're late, I noticed I was kind of like, you know, putting my foot down. You know, there's like, well, he's not going to tell me how to be. So this is really fascinating, isn't it? Because I think most of us think that if we want to change our partners, we have to address them and we have to go at them. And what I noticed in my own experience and in my own relationship is that when there is all that love coming at me, I just really want to bring in the best that I can into my relationship.
Right, and I like that thought about with love coming at you, because I mean, we spoke about, you know, at the start of a relationship, it's very different when you see your partner's habits. We tend to be more forgiving. We tend to give people more leeway. We tend to find anything that they do a bit endearing. Like, oh, you do that? That's so cute. And we do approach it with more love. I think maybe that's the best way to say it. And, you know, I know for me, and it's, you know, I think it's probably true for you, Gabriella, and everyone else on this webinar, is when someone is talking to us with a bit of love and gives us a bit of a wide berth, say,
Mm-hmm.
we're far more likely to respond to that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Whereas if maybe it's just me, maybe I'm stubborn, but if someone says to me, I want you to change that, part of me just goes, no, I'm not going to do it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Just because the way they've communicated with me. Whereas if someone is approaching me in a kind and loving way, and really connects with me and communicates with me, does that mean I'm going to do it? No. Do I feel that it's more likely I'm going to modify my behavior? Yeah. You know, far more likely that I will shift and change and accommodate someone else if they ask me, you know, kindly and gently and lovingly.
Right. Yeah. You know, and the conversations that we can have from that place are also more more effective, really, you know. So in this, you know, again, in this example of me being late, one of the conversations between my husband and I is, he said, you know, I just start getting a little anxious. And at first I was like, well, stop it. Stop getting anxious. There's nothing to get anxious about, right? And then after, you know, of course, we've been together for almost a decade now, actually 12 years. And in all these years, we've had conversations. And one conversation, I heard him at a deeper level. What I heard is, look, I'm suffering, and I love him. I don't want him to suffer. So, you know, I think when you can have any conversation, you can address any issue, you know, I mean, certainly Will and I do. We talk about all kinds of stuff. And what I notice is that our best conversations and our best times is when there is love at the center. When there is love at the center, you know, when there's a feeling of connection, when there is an understanding, and when you can see your partner's humanity, and when you can see that your partner, of course, has habits, but so do you. You know, human beings have habits, right? And some of these habits are annoying for some of us at times, right? But when you can see it like that, the conversations that we have and the interactions that we have, they just go so much more deep. They do something for the relationship. They really do, versus trying to kind of destroy this particular little behavior, you know, at any cost. So we were talking about ease and grace, right? Why is it valuable? Why is it valuable to understand that ease and grace brings something to the relationship? Well, because as you were saying, when somebody comes at you with love and kindness and sweetness, you know, and just a sense of truth, like that really human truth, I think we recognize that deep sense of humanity, really.
Yeah, I think that's such a key point for people to take away from this webinar. You know, and if nothing else, if you can get less wound up, if you can be a little bit more relaxed and at ease and graceful, as the word is that we've put out there, when you are getting upset from a certain habit that your partner is displaying, if that's the only thing you take away from this webinar, that alone will improve your relationship, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
That alone will lead to better interactions and to more love, more joy, more fun, everything that we've been pointing to. That's such a key point that we wanted to get across.
And you know what happens is that it occurs to you how to contribute to a higher level of relationship. For example, you know, it's occurred to Will to give me this little hints, right? Like, well, because there are times where I just have no clue of how much time has gone by, right? But it occurs to him to say, hey, it's an hour and a half, an hour, you know, all these little hints. One of the things that it's occurred to me is he's really good around the house doing projects, but he sees cleaning after a project as a completely separate task. And I see cleaning after a project as part of the task, right? So it used to really bother me because, you know, things would get done, but then there would be like little messes everywhere, right? I noticed I had a habit of judging that according to, you know, this valuable thought that I have about cleanliness, right? It goes back to my idea of how the world should be. One day, fortunately, it occurs to me, you know, you are very good at cleaning. He is very good at doing things in the house. That's a perfect combination. You can help your relationship by cleaning what he fixed. You know?
Yeah.
I just love that when we are not so engaged in trying to change our partners, what occurs to us can really elevate the quality of our own, you know, friendship and relationship. So there's something to be known about that too.
Yeah, I can see that, and it leads to, like you say, more fulfilling relationships, a higher level teamwork, and seeing things in a different light. What occurred to me as you were speaking, Gabriella, was that, you know, when we think someone's got a bad habit, when we're judging that or when we're getting upset by it, one thing that's really helped me is I used to think, right, that someone is acting in a certain way, that's really annoying. But it's annoying to me because I couldn't understand why they were acting in that way. It didn't make sense to me. So that, to me, a bad habit is when someone does something that makes no sense to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
And what's been helpful to me to see, what's been helpful to me to understand, is that it's not possible for someone else to have my thoughts. It's not possible for someone else to have my thinking. It's not possible for someone else to think the way I do. They might think similar. They might think very similar to me. We might agree on many things, but we can't have the same thinking. And what's been really helpful to me in terms of, you know, dealing with all of my relationships is realizing that people are acting the way they're acting because that makes sense to them. Right? If your husband thought the same way that you did, he would be cleaning up. If you thought the same way he did, you'd be doing projects. And so that, for me, has been really, really helpful in dealing with my relationships, because it kind of, again, takes that personal and side out of it, that it's about they're doing it on. Because if people thought the same as me, every time I got annoyed, it would be because they were doing it on purpose to annoy me. And I know deep down inside they're not doing it to annoy me. They're doing it just because that's what makes sense to them.
Right. Yeah. See, I think you've hit on a really common belief. I think a lot of us at times feel like, well, you're doing this just to piss me off. Obviously, right? Obviously.
Yeah.
But when I have found myself on the other side of the net, on the fence, I mean, I just sort of didn't even have a clue. Like when I'm late 15 minutes, right? And we should have left half an hour ago. What I find is that I'm totally lost in what I'm doing, and I'm not just sort of attentive of time. So I just think that that's really important. People do what they do because it seems like the thing to do at the moment. It's not on purpose. And I think one of the things that often gets us when we're in relationship is we almost think that they do it on purpose just to annoy us. Right? Like they get up in the morning and they have a little meeting with themselves about all the things that I'm going to do to annoy my partner today. I don't know anybody that does that. Maybe somebody does it out there in the world, but there is a certain innocence, right? A certain psychological innocence. We all do what seems logical for us to do at the moment, not really on purpose to piss anybody off.
Yeah.
So
Ravi's made a comment saying in a similar way. So this is what Ravi said. In a similar way, I analyzed my thoughts and found that I find lateness to be a sign of rudeness, similar to Will. I am guessing.
yes. There are many people that have said that to me. How that I must be really self-centered and inconsiderate to do that, right? And what I notice is that when I am late, I'm completely mesmerized by what I'm doing. Like, so I might be doing a project, etc. So I can just imagine that if we're in relationship with somebody and they thought that. Now, actually, Will has never thought that. He just has a habit of being early for things because of the work that he had. He had to be at work 30 minutes before work started, right? So he's never said to me, you're rude. What he explained to me was, I just start getting a little anxious because, I just want to make sure we don't run late. So it's interesting that he said that because Will has never said that to me, but I have found other people that have said that to me. And, when I hear that deeply, that is really not my intention. So yeah. I think there's still something really powerful. If you are in relationship with somebody like me that tends to be late, there's something so powerful about, for us, to hear people with that deep sense of humanity. It's really powerful when you're with somebody and they come at you with truth and love and grace. There's something really powerful.
Yeah. And Ravi said, it wasn't a judgment on you. He was considering why he finds lateness annoying. Mm-hmm. And I think it comes back to that same point we were saying, which is if you thought the same way as Will, you would probably be on time. Sure. or early.
Sure.
And if Will thought the same way that you did, he wouldn't want to be on time. And I know I'm a lot better at timekeeping now. I think with my job as a coach, things have changed. But when I was younger, I used to be late, and I never really considered why was I late. And then one day I realized that for me, I didn't like wasting time. And I used to find that if I got somewhere early before something began, I was wasting time.
Mm-hmm.
In my head, it was a way of me, it maybe doesn't make sense now, but at the time, it was a way of me being efficient.
Right. Which is very different from, the being rude part. But I can see if somebody thinks that.
Yeah.
if somebody believes that, how difficult that must be, right? Because if you're entering a relationship and you feel that a person is not respecting you and they're not being caring of you, of course, that's really going to be impactful
Yeah.
in the relationship.
And similarly, what I used to find, it's funny, like to admit this now, is if I was on time somewhere and someone else was late, I used to really judge them.
So we're
Right? It's crazy, but that's the thinking that I had. That was the
Yeah.
unconscious belief that I had, and everyone has that. But now it's really helpful to see that I'm kind of creating that on both sides, and it helps me to get a bit more clarity around my behaviors and how I'm showing up in the world and what I'm doing and why I'm doing it.
Right. See, it's like we do these things, right? Or people do this, whatever they do. People do what they do. And because we are thinking beings and we can't help but to think, we create all kinds of opinions about people's behaviors. You know, like one of the things that annoys me very much is when I have a party and people get here early. It's like, wait, why are you
I'm
here
not
early?
ready.
I'm not ready. What are you doing? You know? And I have one dear friend actually, and she just consistently, you know, would do this. She came to help me. You know, like she goes, oh, well, you know, I can help you. And she would say that, but I was in my head so much about this is so annoying that I couldn't really hear her. Where I was like, God, I wish she would just show up on time, but you know, late, you know, like for me, again, in my world, you have this half an hour period, right? Particularly in social events. So I was just so annoyed with her that I really couldn't see her intention. Her intention really was to, what can I do to support you? So again, the point is, when we step away from all the judging that we do, and we have a little bit more freedom from our opinions about people's behaviors, I think we're able to see people in a light that ultimately contributes to relationships that are harmonious.
I'm aware of the time. We're coming up to 20 to 9, and I'd love to get some questions. I'd love to invite people. Thanks, Ravi, for asking a couple of questions.
Yes.
Back to the beginning, Thomas said hello. Hank said hello. Matt said hi. Igor said hey. Thomas wanted me to put my glasses back on.
Thomas.
You know, so I don't know. Is this going to be a bad habit, Gabriela? Is this not right?
You know, actually, on my screen, it looks like there are little lights all around it, so it's just kind of weird. But you can put it on if you want.
But yeah, so feel free to ask us any questions that you might have on this topic. Are there anything that you find? Is there an exception? Do you find that there's some habits that you can't see that it's neutral? Have you had any insights from what we've been sharing with you? Have things looked different with your partner or in previous situations? Are there any questions that you might have for both for me or Gabriela around particularly about any habits or how to deal with them, or maybe your own habits? You know, this is the time to really put them in the chat box, send them across to us, and we'll do our best to get through all of them. If you've got any questions, maybe we've done a great job and covered all the bases, and now you suddenly feel free to handle any habit that your partner has with ease and grace, and it'll never be a problem again. But if there is anything that's outstanding or that you've got a question about, then do pop it in the chat box and we'll get to it.
And you know, while we're waiting, it's really so powerful to see the relationship between our own opinions, you know, our own thinking, and our own evaluation of behaviors or situations, and how we see people. And when we see that how we approach things comes directly from how we're putting it together, when we see that, it can really free you from a lot of discomfort. And I think that's, in essence, our hope with this topic, right? is that you are going to be in relationships, even if you're not in a romantic relationship at the moment. And I think all relationships, of course, have this issue. But it's just really powerful when you see that the discomfort and the pain of being in the relationships around this topic of habits, it almost melts away as you see that feeling really comes only from you. So, you know, I think it's typical. You will get annoyed from time to time. But it's really, really powerful. I just had this situation with my brother where, again, we're stuck in this certain pattern of behavior. And just really, really recently, like even this morning, I just saw, oh, this is why. Just sort of understanding. Do we have a question? Or are you just looking into the screen?
So, Ravi's just commented, it's great to reflect afterwards, but at the time, it is so easy to be caught up in our beliefs.
Yes, that's true. Yes.
Yeah, I just want to say to that, Ravi, that absolutely. But the great thing about relationships is you get so many opportunities to see things so clearly. And if you get caught up, you get caught up. But for me, if I get caught up in someone, what I see as a bad habit, then that's forever. I'll never see past that. But when I get some understanding, even if I'm able to see it afterwards, to reflect and see it differently, even just that is helpful, because as that keeps happening, it gives me a different interaction, and eventually we don't get as caught up as we used to, in my experience. So yeah, go on, Gabriela.
Yeah, well, yeah, and when that happens, that happens to me all the time, that I see it afterwards, after I've said something or I've done something that's not so harmonious or graceful, really. And then I just sort of see, like, wow, it's very evident to me today when I can go back and ask for an apology. Actually, apologizing was one of those things that I never did before, because I just had a lot of thinking about it. So, it's beautiful. You see it afterwards. You see it afterwards. How lovely that you can be guided to, if it feels right to you, to do something about it at the time, to make amends. Because again, I think that brings an element into the relationship of love and kindness, and that can only just help.
Yeah. Igor has got a question. Igor's going to be meeting us in November. So
great.
Igor's a great guy, I know him well. He's got a question. When did you see or feel the change in connection to time, and will in particular? So I'm guessing you're asking when did that change for you with regards to time?
There was one conversation that we had a while back. And I don't even know, to be honest with you, if we were talking about time or something. I don't think we were talking about a habit. I think we were just talking about whatever, right? And he said, I just really want to be on time because I get very nervous when thinking that we're going to be late or something. But I don't think he was trying to change me. That's key, I think, for me. Because like you, I kind of, dig my heels. And in that moment, I just appreciated, I don't know how long it's been. It's been maybe 3 years or something, maybe 2, I don't know. I have gotten more aware of that as time has gone by. But what I just really get touched by is his desire to be kind with me. That somehow, for whatever reason, that really touches me. So one of the wonderful little bubbles of wisdom that came to my head, again, because I was just deeply connected with him, is I use my phone now when we have like a time schedule, and I give myself alarms every 20 minutes to help me notice how much time has gone by, So I think as long as as long as he was trying to change this, for me, it just felt like I was not going to give in, you know. So
Eagle's got another question around what's been the most helpful thing in accepting the habits of other people. And for me, if I could just take that one, it's really been about thought. And understanding the nature of thought as accepting, and maybe that's not even the best way to put it, about accepting the habits of other people, but just seeing what people do, seeing behavior in a totally different way. And I think we talked about this before, which is realizing that other people don't think the same as me. And it sounds so obvious now when I say it, but in the moment it doesn't seem that way. In the moment, when it used to look like to me that everyone thought the same or was dealing with some objective reality, right? I didn't realize everything was subjective. There was objective reality, and therefore if you did this, then that would result in me feeling a certain way. But and as I've seen that everyone kind of makes up their own reality through their own thinking, and everyone's got their own beliefs, everyone's got their own culture, everyone's had their own upbringing. There's so many things which impact the way they think, that everyone thinks differently. And I know Jack Pransky, who, Gabriella, you know well, I've interviewed him. He's written a great book called Somebody Should Have Told Us, and he talked about habits in his book. And he said that his ex-wife, you know, she used to, when she'd finish cleaning the kitchen, she'd pick up the stopper, you know, the plug for the sink, and pick it up and put it on the side. And it really used to annoy him because that was the thing that used to pick up all the gunk, you know, so you know, go down in the drain and get blocked. And he was like, why are you doing that? And what he found out was, for her, when she was younger, that meant she was done with the kitchen. You know, she'd do everything, and pulling out the stopper was a thing that meant the kitchen was clean. It made sense to her. It didn't make sense to him, and he had something different about, he didn't clean the surfaces or something like that. And for him, that wasn't his job in his household when he was growing up. That was someone else, and that used to annoy her. So, so the thing that's been the most helpful for me is seeing that everyone thinks differently. And like you say, sometimes just having that conversation of what makes sense to us, why do we do what we do, not as a defensive thing, not as in a way to try and change someone, but almost just noticing, like, oh, that's interesting. I do that because of this. Oh, you do that because, oh, that's interesting. And being aware of it from that point of view, for me, has made it much easier for me to interact with other people without getting upset about their behaviors and their habits. Hank's got another question about, he said it's slightly off topic, but I think we've got time because, you know, we've still got a few minutes left. How about the habit of some jobs that require long hours, 11-hour work days?
What about it? What's the question?
Yeah, so if you've got a more direct question, Hank, then please do type it into the box. You know, do you have a question around, is that right? Is that wrong? It would be useful to give us some more direction around.
To find out what's the real question.
Yeah. Ravi said that he's found it useful to accept some of his own habits as well. It's not just for other people. And I think that's
right. Yeah. I tell you, it's really helpful for me to notice how many things I do just, you know, like like putting away, washing people's cup before they're done. I was like, what's that all about? You know, what am I doing? Right? So, you know, in all of this the whole topic, what I love is looking at this whole thing with a sense of kindness and gentleness for your partner and for yourself. You know, that we have these quirky behaviors, but it just feels so nice to me when I look at all my own behaviors on being late, and with a sense just sort of a curiosity, right, and kindness and gentleness. And what happens is, as I'm in that space, I get little ideas about how to help myself, like with the phone. I thought that was brilliant. It's like, I don't have really a good sense of time, how time is passing, but I have a phone. So for me, if I was going to say anything about this topic that's been helpful, is to really understand that a sense of harshness and deep evaluation doesn't seem to be super helpful, for yourself or for others, really.
So Hank's come back and said, how do you handle long hours with grace?
Well, sometimes good and sometimes badly. That's the truth, Hank. Sometimes I'm really good at it, and sometimes I notice that I don't. I'm not in a position where I have to work long hours every day at work. But what I notice is that my ability to be efficient decreases if I'm tired, just even physically tired. So I think it's just been really in situations when I've had to put in long hours. It's really helpful to kind of keep an eye on my wisdom, and see. This is the point. Do you remember that example that I gave with the phone, right? Like all of a sudden it occurred to me, oh wait, you have this. It occurred to me. I wasn't trying to help myself. It just occurred to me. It was a gift of wisdom that came to the surface. That's been very helpful. I think it's very important for all of us to remember that all of us inside have a fountain of wisdom or ideas that will guide us, right? So in you, there is a solution that will rise. And I think knowing that, being aware of that, helps us pay more attention to see what would make sense for our lives. So I don't know exactly what it would be helpful for you, but I know that you do, just like me, like Ankush, like everyone in the call, this capacity to help yourself, to come up with neat solutions. And, sometimes, to be honest, the solution in a situation like that is, I really need to change this.
We've got one more question. I think this is going to be the last one, and it's from Arthur. And he said, it's scary to see that my ex-wife was like you, over clean, over late, and I was on time, and over messy.
Mm-hmm.
But we tried to change each other and it didn't work. The more we tried to change each other, the worse it got. So can you help? So how can you help seeing the root issue here without offending the other party?
Well, I think the root issue often is the mistake. There is a misunderstanding about the root issue, Arthur. The misunderstanding is that the root issue is your partner. The problem is your partner behavior. That's the root. That's the misunderstanding. The root issue is not that. It's really to understand that, first off, you or your partner are not their habits. And I think we forget that in relationship. We get so entangled with the behavior that we even miss our partners all completely. Right? The solution for me, what's been really helpful, is to understand the nature of where is my feeling of annoyance coming from. Right? So if I understand that the feeling of annoyance comes from me, then the direction for the solution is me. I'm not misdirected to my partner. Like Will saying, it's an hour and a half. He never he doesn't tell me, you're so damn rude. He actually has never told me that. So I think that the very first thing that we need to understand in relationships is we need to understand where is the true source of our experience in life. And also that the human being that we're choosing to be in relationship with is just like us. There is a sense of humanity. They want to have a nice life. They want to be loved. They want to love. I mean, we are so similar as human beings that when I see that in my husband, right, it just creates a sense of alliance. When I'm trying to change him, it creates a sense of separation. And that's true with my brother, and that's true with my neighbor, and that's true with everyone.
Yeah, I think that's a great place for us to end on. If anyone's got any more questions, if there's anything that we didn't answer that you wanted some more clarification around, then please do send us an email. Gabriela, what's the best email address for you?
You can connect to my website, www.truechangeconsultants.com. You can go under Contact Us, and you can send me an email.
Yeah, and mine is ankushjain.co.uk, and a similar procedure. Also, if you want, I know Arthur, you are going to also be meeting us in November.
Yeah.
So we can have more of a conversation then. But we are. If you want to have a bit more of an experience, you can get to Birmingham in the UK if that's easy for you to get to. Then we are doing a live event. It's the first time that we've done this. It's on the 6th of November. Tickets are, I think now they're about £15. Hopefully you should see a link on the bottom of your screen that should be coming across now that my friend Henk is flashing up for you. If you want to buy a ticket to that, we would strongly encourage you guys to come. Of course, we're biased and we're going to say that, but we're still going to say it anyway. You should check it out and bring your friends. That's what I'm going to say.
Yeah, because I think the thing that makes me most excited about this event is that we're going to be having this kind of conversations that are honest, and that are, I think, human beings really having a truth conversation, and also finding out what can be helpful, simple truths that can be helpful for your relationship. So with that being said, thank you.
With that being said, thank you very much. I know Hank's just popping up the link on the side of the page I can see as well now, which is you can buy tickets through Eventbrite. The event's called Rediscover the Fun in Your Relationship. We've got about 30 people coming to the event now. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to meeting you, Gabriela, in person.
Yes, me too.
And we've got another webinar next week. So we will be putting out details. If you've registered for this one, you'll get an email closer to the date about the next one. It will also be on relationships. And if you go to my Google page, then you can also see the old webinars that we've done. And if you registered, you got access to those as well. So really enjoy this, Gabby.
Thank you. Good.
And I look forward to the next one.
Alrighty. Take care.